Okay, do you ever find yourself wondering, why do I keep putting this task off? I know I'm supposed to do it. I want to get it done, but I just can't seem to bring myself to do it. Well, today we're going to talk about procrastination and what are some of the reasons that you might be procrastinating, and some of them might surprise you. If you're new here, I am Kat from My Happy Insides, and this is our first edition of Get Unstuck Wednesday. So I'm going to be showing you some of the different ways that people can get stuck, and in particular, we're going to focus on procrastination. Now, one of the things I want to make sure I do is explain to you the 3 different ways people tend to get stuck. So when I do this work with others, I'm always trying to get you to understand that there's more than one way to get stuck. So what are some of these ways? Well, there are 3 core ways that I focus on. The first is, are you missing information or skills? Like literally, you can't move forward because something's missing and you need to fill that gap before you can actually make progress. The second is, are you missing information about yourself? So maybe you're inadvertently working against your tendencies. So it's kind of like swimming against the current. And then finally, are you facing an adaptive challenge? This means that you have some sort of mindset block. You have a limiting belief that is holding you back from doing something. So this is a case where you actually know what to do and you know how to do it, but you're still not doing it. So we're going to explore each of these. Now, for the purpose of this Get Unstuck Wednesday, I thought we would pick an example of something that could be an area of procrastination. Let's say that you are putting off doing a project in your home. Now, to pick something simple, it's maybe repainting a room. So you know you want to repaint a room. It's on your list. It is actually important to you, but you are just not making any progress on it. So let's start to uncover some of the different ways you can get stuck. So if we first take a look at this first level, missing information or skills. Well, when it comes to any kind of situation like this, first of all, do you know the first step that you need to take? Sometimes when we don't actually know the first or next step, we can get stuck because we know there's a bunch of different steps. We kind of see them all. Maybe we've written them down, maybe not. They swirl around in our head and you just don't take any action at all. Now, the second example is maybe you're actually not very skilled at the thing you have to do. And so you're kind of filled with dread because you know it's going to be a tough slog. You're missing some of those skills. And so it would be much easier for you if you could actually do this better. So you're putting off not doing it because it's just not developed yet, which happens with almost anything that's new. So we might require a little bit of work up front before we embark on this thing. Now, the other piece that could be missing is some sort of structure. So oftentimes we have this great idea, we have an intention, but we haven't actually considered what it would look like, when it's going to happen, where it's going to happen, what we're going to need. And in the absence of that structure, it just doesn't happen. So if this is the case, this is the first place we should look. Are there some just technical roadblocks that we can start to eliminate? So a really simple one could be an implementation intention of, okay, this is when I'm going to do it, and this is the very first thing I need to do. Now, when it comes to deciding what's the first thing that I need to do, we want to break it down to the simplest step. So if we take that room example, you might say, okay, well, I need to pick a color of paint. That sounds like a simple first step, but there's actually micro steps in between. Maybe you have to narrow it down to a few different colors. Maybe even just narrowing it down to light or dark. Are you just repainting the same color or are you trying something new? Because a lot of people, if they think, oh, I have this whole new opportunity, there's so many choices and that can feel overwhelming. So you can break it down maybe to something simple like, I'm going to go onto Pinterest and find 4 to 5 rooms that I like, or I'm just going to go and get some swatches. That's the very first step that I'm going to take. Or maybe I just ask a friend who knows color for their recommendations and start there. But pick it, and it should be so simple that you think, oh, I've got this. I can do this. And then if it comes to the fact that maybe you're not super skilled at doing something, and so this entire endeavor feels like too much, Well, that's where you can maybe build some skills. This could be having someone help you, or it could be maybe taking some tutorials or watching some videos or whatever it is. Keep in mind, I'm talking about painting a room, but this really applies to anything. If we're not very skilled at it yet, it can help time to invest a little bit of ourselves up front so that we get better at it, especially if it's something we're going to repeat. Now, what's the next level? What's another way that you can get stuck? Well, this is where maybe you're missing information about yourself. So if you're missing information about yourself, this could be, do you work better with accountability or maybe not? If you're familiar at all with Gretchen Rubin's 4 tendencies, you'll know that we react differently to inner and external expectations compared to other people. For example, I'm an obliger. I work better with external expectations. So if someone's coming to my house and I need to redo a room, you better bet that that's going to help me to get that room done on time. But if no one's ever going to come and see that room, there's less pressure to do that. Now, there are some people who they don't need external accountability, and maybe they don't even like external accountability. For example, rebels and questioners tend to bristle when other people are telling them what they should do. Now, if you know your tendency, I want you to drop it in the comments and let me know. Are you an upholder, a questioner, an obliger, or a rebel? And if you don't know, you can go and check out Gretchen Rubin's free quiz to find out which one you are. When you know your tendency, it makes it easier to work with yourself. And that leads to another one on this list. Maybe you need more information before you proceed on the project. So if you are a questioner, and even sometimes if you're a rebel, you might want to actually know, why am I about to do this thing? So there's a really good chance you are putting off doing something because you don't fully believe in it yet. Maybe you're not quite in it, and you're not sure you even should spend any time. So the idea of spending any more time doing this thing, if it's not really justified, that can be problematic for somebody who really does need that information, a person like a questioner or a rebel who needs to identify with what they're doing. If I'm going to spend time on this, I want to make sure it's something that I actually want to do. So by understanding yourself a little better, you can actually start to figure out what are some techniques that may or may not work with you. But another thing is, maybe you work better with other people. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're better solo. And so you could be putting off a project because you're not looking forward to doing it alone, or maybe you're supposed to do it with someone else and you really don't want to do that. Asking yourself those questions, how can I amend the situation so that I'm not swimming against the current in this situation? So if we take this room renovation and you're trying to repaint a room, maybe painting on my own, that sounds like a drag. But inviting someone over, having some fun music, just making it into an event, for me, I would actually really enjoy that. And I would look forward to having a friend come over and actually do this with me. That would make it fun and something that I look forward to. Now, let's look at that third level. This is the level of having some sort of belief or mindset block that is holding you back from taking action on something. It's one of the reasons why we are procrastinating on something. Now, we always want to start with the technical. So is there something I can do up front to help myself, whether that's finding out new information or adapting my schedule or just being really clear about the next step? Can I work with my tendency? Like maybe for me, having external accountability, that's a really great way for me to get something done, having a deadline or someone else involved. But then the third level of where we get stuck is this mindset level. And there are 2 steps to it. Because first we want to understand, what are we afraid of? So when you identify a fear, like if I actually take action, if I stop procrastinating and start working on the thing I need to get done, what am I worried about? This is your first step. So some examples of fears, and this is different for everyone, are listed here. So a great example is, I don't think I'm going to like it. I'm going to be very uncomfortable or unpleasant. It's going to be a drag. I don't want to spend time doing this. You start to dread the experience itself and how you're going to feel. And let's be honest, we want to protect ourselves from feeling those uncomfortable inner states. We don't like them, so we try to avoid them. So that's one reason, is I just don't want to experience that discomfort of doing the actual exercise. Now, another could be, I could screw it up. I might either all out fail, do it completely wrong, and I've just wasted all of this time. Or I might just mess it up and I'll go so far down the road that I'm just being led astray. And so this is another example of I don't want to experience failure. I don't want to mess it up. So it's easier if I just don't do it at all. Another one that I've got here is you could have harm to relationships. So the way you do something, maybe it will garner a little bit of disrespect or criticism from other people. Maybe someone's going to look at you differently if you actually take action on the project. Now, obviously, it depends on what project we're talking about. But if we look at the room example, maybe I'm afraid that if I overhaul, I'm going to cause all this commotion in my home. The other people who live here are going to get displaced and maybe they'll get angry with me for doing all of this. So we all have different things that we're worried about happening when it comes to those relationships. Now, another thing is when we procrastinate on something, it could be because we think if I actually spend time doing that thing, I'm going to have to sacrifice something of mine. My time is already so precious and I only have so much time in the day for myself. I just don't want to spend time doing this. So it's like this loss. We don't want to lose out on our own personal time. Now, another example is if I actually do this, I will no longer have an excuse. So if I don't do it, I know exactly why I'm not getting what I want because I'm putting it off. I'm procrastinating. We kind of laugh at ourselves and say, oh, look at me procrastinating again. However, if we actually take action and do the thing we've been putting off, if it doesn't go well, it's because we didn't do it well. We don't really have an excuse to hide behind. Whereas right now, we do. If we're just putting it off, we know exactly what's going on. And finally, success. It seems like a strange one, but a lot of people are actually afraid of, what if this goes well? Now, I'm not sure about painting the room, but if we did take that example, maybe you paint the room and it goes really well and you're actually good at it, you might be worried, is my family going to expect me to paint all the rooms in the house? Is it like a never-ending thing? And once I start, I won't stop. It's going to be this whole cascade and this roller coaster. So these are just some examples, and you can think for yourself, is there a worry that you have for something that you're putting off? So when we have any of these, when we experience any of these, and if these feel familiar, let me know in the comments and say, yeah, this feels familiar. Yeah, I recognize a few of these. If a few of these unpleasant things come up for you, hit me up, let me know in the comments. Now, what I would like to then do once we've identified our fears is that then we need to figure out, why do we have those fears? And that's where the beliefs come into play. So if we now transition over and start thinking, okay, what are some of the beliefs that I have that are making me think that I'm going to have these uncomfortable things happen? Why do I need to avoid them? So in this example, you might be putting off doing something, that unpleasant state, because you have an assumption that you are not going to like doing the thing you're putting off. You just like, I won't like it. That's just a belief that I hold, that I don't like it. So I don't want to do it because it's going to be miserable. That's a belief we have, and it might not be true. So we can challenge that belief and say, well, is it actually true? Am I really going to hate this thing that I'm putting off? Because maybe I won't. Maybe I'm wrong. Now, another example is I'm not good at this, and I'm going to look bad if I actually do this. So we protect ourselves by not going about making any changes. We have an assumption that this is just going to go poorly. And oftentimes it's only based on limited data. We've had a few experiences where maybe something has gone bad, but we tend to ignore the times in our life when we've tried something and it's gone well. Another thing is I might be criticized by others. I might lose other people's respect. Sometimes we have these opinions that we just automatically assume we're going to be criticized. And again, this could be based on some past history, but I have a hunch that sometimes we are just being our own worst critic and we just assume people might look at us poorly if we do something. Maybe we don't do it perfectly. But that's another thing. You just assume I'm not going to do well. Well, we want to challenge that belief. The other thing is with scarcity is this idea that I have to give up time in order to do this. I'm letting go of my time. I'm giving up my time. And technically there may be a trade-off, but also this is all about how we see our time. So maybe the thing you're putting off, you actually might enjoy doing it. And maybe it still feels like your time. You haven't completely given it away. It is still your time. You're just choosing to work on this thing that you want to get done. Now, this is a big one, and this is a common one through a lot of stumbling blocks. And this is this idea that if I actually do this, people are going to figure out that I don't really know fully what I'm doing, and that I'm a bit of a fraud, or that I'm a failure and I don't want the world to find out. So I'm just going to not do anything instead. Now, maybe painting a room is not the greatest one, but it could be that I feel like a failure in my head. If I think I'm this amazing DIY, I'm going to be Pinterest worthy, but actually I just can't. I'm not creative. We've got all these stories that we tell about ourselves, and we start to think everyone's going to figure out that I'm really not that good at this, or that I can't really figure this out, or I tout that I can do stuff around the home, but I really don't. This tends to be more powerful in a work setting when someone feels like, I'm not sure that I'm supposed to be here or that I deserve what I have. And so it's like one day someone's just going to pull back the curtain and see that I'm actually a fraud. And so this is a very strong feeling. It's a very common feeling. And so we can put off doing things, whether that's a project at work or a personal pursuit that we want to go after. We feel like, oh, if I actually do it, everyone's going to figure out that it's not going to go well. And they'll know, they'll be on to me. It's extremely common. The finally that I have on here is with the success. Like, why am I afraid of success? So one example of a limiting belief might be, I'm not equipped to deal with it if it goes well. Like, what if I can't handle if this goes well? Now, the example with painting a room might be, if this goes well, I'm going to be expected to do this all over, and I can't maybe control what I'm asked to do or not do. But at work, a great example is if you do something really well, you might feel like there's going to be an onslaught, or that suddenly you've opened the floodgates and you can't really control what's going on, or maybe you don't know what to expect from yourself. And so the idea of being successful is actually really intimidating because it's this great unknown. And when we don't know what we're facing, sometimes it's easier to just keep ourselves safe and to not experience it. So this can actually be something that people are pretty scared of. Now, I have shared the 3 different levels of how we can get stuck. And obviously the third one, these limiting beliefs, that's the deepest one. But I would say if you have tried the technical challenges, you've said, okay, what can I do differently? Can I make an implementation intention? Can I just pick the first step and see what happens? Can I start working with my tendency? Those are some small, kind of low-hanging fruit and a great place to start. But if you are continually tripped up over and over, and you actually know what to do and how to do it, and you know how to work with yourself, and you're just not doing it, that's where it's really worth spending some of the time unpacking, what am I afraid of doing? Like, what are some of these fears that come up when I imagine not procrastinating? Do I feel like I'll be overwhelmed? Do I feel like I just won't have any time for myself? Whatever that is, it's really helpful to be able to know that. And so that's where I want you to start, but then I don't want you to just stop without asking yourself those questions. All right, I see that we've got Dimitri here, and he says, I'm an obliger. The fears and beliefs definitely resonate with me. For better or for worse, we're often our own worst enemy. Thank you so much for saying that, Dimitri. That is so true. We are our own worst enemy. So here's what I actually want you to do when you identify those fears, is that I would like you to pay attention to what happens when you do take action. Because maybe you'll start to experience things like, oh, this wasn't so bad. This wasn't as hard as I thought it was. I'm not as terrible at this as I thought I was. Or it could be something like, you know what? I feel so good now that I've actually done this thing. Like, these are all really, really powerful things. So for example, I often do put off projects around my home. And I think about all the work that's going to be involved. I think about all the steps involved, and it kind of feels overwhelming. But once in a while, when push comes to shove and I show up and I do it, I actually find I feel so proud of myself. Not only is my space improved because I've put the time and effort in, but usually I kind of feel like a rock star after. Honestly, I'll just think, wow, why did I think that was so scary? Now, all of those little experiences that we have, I want you to pay attention to them, because those are contradicting a lot of these beliefs that we have, that maybe it's too much, that maybe I'm not good at it, that it's going to take up too much time. If I pay attention to those examples of when I've tackled a big project in my home, I'll actually say, you know what? I'm actually going to enjoy my space more. I can do it. I know my limits. I actually can tell when I need to maybe hire help versus what I can actually do. I know that stuff. I can figure that out. The more we pay attention to those examples from our life that maybe we've been ignoring, we can start to shift our mindset a little bit and we can start to take action more often. But you do need to pay attention. So that's the thing I really want to drive home. Whether it's procrastination or it's another thing, when we pay attention to these natural challenges to some of the beliefs that we have, we can start to shift our mindset for the better. And we can start to get unstuck because we're lifting those barriers. We're removing those beliefs. We're changing them and we're kind of moving them out of the way and clearing the road so that we can move forward and do what it is we want to get done. Now, I want to thank you for being part of this very first Get Unstuck Wednesday. We're exploring different things, but I do want to hear from you. What other things would you like me to unpack? Now, I heard from a couple of people when I put the question out, and some of the examples that I got were morning routine, exercising more consistently. Like, why do I have trouble exercising consistently? We can unpack that. Screen time, social media time. You know you want to change it, but you can't seem to change it. Let's unpack that. We're going to look at that. And there was another one, and it is, going to bed on time. That's a common one that people want to know. I know I need proper sleep. I know how important it is. And I try, but I just can't seem to get to bed on time. So those are some of the topics that have already come up, and those are ones that we're going to explore. But I'd also love to hear if there's anything else, there's a common stumbling block for you. Drop it in the comments or send me a message, because I would love to explore the stuff that is of interest to you and give you some insight into maybe some of the hidden reasons that aren't so obvious of why we're getting stuck and tripped up on these things. So thank you for being part of this very first Get Unstuck Wednesday. I can't wait to explore some more, uncover some of these reasons that we are getting stuck. And as always, I welcome your ideas so we can keep doing this and figure out maybe ways that we can help you to get unstuck. Have a great day.